Every kingdom has an origin story. This one starts with a bodyguard, a forbidden love, and a killing that changed the course of Javanese history. I came here to find out how much of it is still standing, starting with Museum Singhasari. Entry is free, you just sign the guest book on your way in. I'd arrived close to closing time, so I ended up with a guide walking me through it piece by piece, which honestly made the whole thing hit differently. We start in the courtyard. This is Ken Dedes, carved in stone, the goddess of wisdom, at least in symbol. Beside her, Ken Arok. Together, they were the first king and queen of Singhasari, its founders. But as you'll see, founders doesn't quite capture how this kingdom actually began. These masks drying out in the sun aren't just decoration.
Museum Singasari regularly hosts elementary school visits, and after the history lesson, the kids get to paint their own. This is a linga yoni, a sacred symbol in Hinduism, representing masculine and feminine energy fused together. Behind this glass case are the results, masks painted by local school kids, some made of fiber, others of gypsum, like the ones drying outside. Imagine walking through this room at midnight. Time to head into the main building. This is where it gets interesting. This one right here is a Majapahit-era romance, the story of Panji Margasmara and Ken Chandrasari. They fell for each other, but both came from noble blood, which meant their marriages were never really theirs to choose. Both families had already arranged different matches, so they ran. Their escape route is mapped out right here on the wall. They were eventually caught and married off exactly as planned. But here's the twist. Years later, their own children fell in love and married each other, from forbidden lovers to in-laws. This story is significant enough that it's now recognized as part of the world's collective memory, UNESCO's Memory of the World. These illustrations show the characters from that story. This is the family tree, and it traces directly into the Majapahit royal line. Makes sense, Singhasari was Majapahit's predecessor. Below it, the lineage continues from Singhasari through to Majapahit, and next to it, a map of Singhasari's territory. At its peak, the kingdom's influence reportedly extended across a vast stretch of what is now Indonesia. Singhasari only had 5 rulers in its entire existence: Ken Arok, Anusapati, Panji Tojaya, Wisnuwardana, and finally Kertanegara. Its collapse came from the outside, a rebellion led by Jaya Katuang, who was avenging his ancestors' earlier defeat at the hands of Ken Arok. That, combined with the looming threat of a Mongol invasion, the same force that had already conquered much of the Asian mainland, brought the kingdom down. Now we move into the artifact collection, everything that's been recovered from Singhasari so far. These 3 statues, by Raiwa, Nandi, and Durga, are replicas. The originals live in the National Museum in Jakarta. This is a collection of original Keris blades from the Singhasari and Majapahit eras, not replicas. Look closely and you'll notice 2 shapes. Straight blades belong to the Singhasari era, while the wavy ones are Majapahit style. Next to them, artifacts from the Dutch colonial period. This is a miniature version of the Garuda Vishnu Kanchana statue. You can see the full-size version in Bali. This mask is authentic Malangan style, made by the late master craftsman Ba Karimun. Listed here are Singhasari's surviving temples: Kidal Temple, Singhasari Temple, and Jago Temple, all located around Malang. Moving into the next room, this statue is original, kept behind glass. It's Durga, though her head has been lost to time. This household tool was used for grinding grains and seeds. This is Bimuka, an original statue with 2 faces, which is exactly where the name comes from. Next to it, Ganesha, the god of wisdom. This is a traditional cooking stove. Firewood goes underneath, and beside it, a grinding tool used for herbs and spice pastes. This is Nandi, both the mount and the companion of the god Shiva. Curious what happened before Ken Arok became king?
This diorama tells that part of the story. The short version, Ken Arok started out as a bodyguard for the ruler of Tumapel, a territory under the Kediri kingdom. He fell for the ruler's wife, Ken Dedes. After consulting with his teacher, he became convinced that he, not the man she was married to, was meant to be with her. He killed the ruler, married Ken Dedes, and built the power base that would eventually go to war with Kediri and win. Out of that victory, the kingdom of Singhasari was born. If you want the full version, it's easy enough to find. Search it. Into the next room. This is the newest part of the collection, and all of it is original, not replica. These are fragments of terracotta statues and several linga, discovered in 2022 at Sri Gading Temple, about 12 kilometers from this museum. This pair of teapots is original, from the Singhasari era, found at that same site. So are the statues beside them, original, and, unlike most of what we've seen, their heads are still intact, found at the same location as everything else in this room. That's Museum Singhasari, fully explored. Now it's time to head to where this story actually took place, Singasari Temple. I've arrived at the Singhasari Temple site. Time to go in and see what's actually left of this kingdom. Don't forget to sign the guest book first. Around the temple, there are dozens of stone fragments laid out in careful rows. No labels, no explanations, just pieces. Some are chunks of the temple structure itself. Others are what's left of statues, most of them missing their heads. Nobody's fully cataloged what each piece belonged to. And there's something strange about standing in front of a headless statue with no name attached to it. A person or a god, someone spent months carving by hand, reduced to a fragment nobody can identify anymore. This is what's left after 7 centuries. Not a story, just pieces of one. This is Singasari Temple, and out of everything I've seen today, this is the one place where the kingdom actually happened. Not a replica in a display case. Not a diorama, the real site. Historians believe this temple was built as a funerary monument for Kertanagara, the 5th and last king of Singhasari, the same ruler whose death triggered the kingdom's collapse. He was assassinated in 1292 during Jayakatwang's rebellion. The same story the museum guide walked me through less than an hour ago. Standing here, it's not just a story anymore. Look at the way the temple is oriented. It faces northwest, directly toward Mount Arjuno. That's not an accident. In Javanese temple design, mountains weren't just scenery. They were considered the dwelling place of the gods, so temples were built to face them, deliberately, as a kind of alignment between the human world and the divine one. What's easy to miss is that this temple was never meant to stand alone. This entire area was once the center of the Singhasari royal court. Historians believe there were at least 8 temples here, along with gateways, courtyards, and pavilions, all part of a kingdom whose influence reportedly reached as far as Kalimantan and the Maluku Islands, and whose power was significant enough to draw the attention of Kublai Khan himself. All of that, gone. What's left is one temple and a pair of massive Dwarapala guardian statues who've been standing watch here for over 700 years, guarding a palace that no longer exists. There's something that sits with you standing in the middle of a royal complex that shrunk down to a single building. This wasn't just a temple. It was the heart of a kingdom that at its peak stretched further than most people would guess, built by a man who started out as someone else's bodyguard and ended with a rebellion nobody saw coming. Everything I saw in that museum, the masks, the Karis blades, the love story carved into the wall,
All of it traces back to this one patch of ground. If Kertanagara could see what's left of his kingdom now, I don't know if he'd recognize it. But he'd probably still recognize the mountain his temple was built to face.